realizes that you're not crazy and these motherfuckers mean business. When buying a gas mask, the key is to look for something that gives you wide visibility. Trying to shoot a firearm while wearing a gas mask can make things tricky. I can't tell you what the best gas mask is, but if something grants you more breathing time than however long you can hold your breath, then it's worth the money. If you only get an extra 5 minutes breathing time out of a gas mask, and that helps you stay alive, then the mask was worth it. A $10 gas mask can do the same thing as a $40 gas mask, or even more expensive one. Don't be fooled by these people who say only the expensive stuff is good. That's bullshit. Tweezers, that's for picking splinters or very small shrapnel fragments out of your skin. And as far as removing shit goes, you don't want to remove large pieces of shrapnel because your ass might bleed out. Fish hooks and small spool of fishing line. Even if you don't eat fish, carry these. If you get caught out in the middle of nowhere and run out of food, you'll thank me for telling you to include these. Safety pins. These can be useful when you don't want to bother sewing something together, or you don't have time to sew something together, and they can also be useful as fish hooks. A wire saw or other small saw. This can be useful. I suggest a conventional small saw before I'll suggest a wire saw, as I'm told that many of the wire saws will end up breaking pretty easily. Ziploc bags. This is for keeping things dry. You pretty much want to put just about everything in a Ziploc bag. Your gloves, your maps, your socks, your goddamn whitey-tighties I told you not to bring, that kind of stuff. Camo face paint. This can save you from getting your head blown off. Get some. A mosquito net or camo net mask. Don't leave home without one. If you wear seeing glasses, you can put the mosquito net over your head and it will allow you to see the enemy, but it will keep sun or other light reflection from giving your position away. The last thing you want is a light reflecting on your glasses and catching a bullet right through your eyeglass lens. Sunglasses and infantry goggles. This is not only for keeping the sun out of your eyes, but also will prevent debris and other things from blinding you. A hat. This is also good for keeping the sun out of your eyes. Now, where are you going to find all this stuff? That's easy. Aside from a few choice items, you can get most of what I've mentioned at your local hardware store, your grocery store, a dollar store, thrift stores, and clothing stores. Definitely take advantage of your dollar store. If your city or town doesn't have a surplus store that has military stuff in it, you can easily find this stuff online. And you can also get plenty of this stuff actually on eBay. As for more reading materials, check out paladinpress.com, deltapress.com, and loompanics.com. Loompanics is no longer in business, but their site is an excellent resource for finding similar bookstores. If you're not listening to the Intelligence Report radio show, you need to start right now. Go to WTPRN.com, which is We the People Radio Network. Click on Podcast on the left, and then scroll down to the Intelligence Report. On Wednesdays, they do Weapons Wednesdays, and they cover a lot of useful info. If you're not that familiar with firearms yet, you'll catch on, don't worry. Another thing you'll want to do is plug into awrm.org, that's a well-regulated militia, and start getting well-versed in military and militia language and how things operate. You'll also be able to ask questions to veterans and hook up with people of like mind. Studying guerrilla warfare will give you an idea of the kind of operations that American patriots will be conducting. Primarily, these operations will be focused on sabotage, assassination, and conventional assaults on enemy targets. Sabotage will be in the area of destroying facilities, vehicles, or equipment used by the enemy. Mere vandalism is just a waste of time. This is done for practical purposes as well as to intimidate, frustrate, embarrass, and demoralize the enemy. For instance, any media outlet that continues to cooperate with the enemy could have its facilities or news coverage vehicles blown up. You see a news van, somebody's not in it, great, nobody's around, blow it up. Assassinations will minimize civilian casualties and maximize demoralization of the enemy and a cutting off of enemy leadership. Assassinations should be numerous and swift. They should occur simultaneously to minimize the enemy's ability to respond. Conventional assaults would be against invading enemy forces with a focus on minimizing civilian casualties. Every kind of dirty trick should be used to compensate for American resistors, American patriots, lacking advanced military technologies. Supply lines, enemy communications facilities, and enemy barracks would make for prime targets. Liberation of Americans from enemy internment camps will also be a prime objective. The primary tool of the enemy is deception, whereas the tool of the American patriot is truth. It follows that they will seek every means possible to discredit, demoralize, and discourage any resistance. Such operations will include assassination, imprisonment, or embarrassment and discrediting of American patriot leaders. They will seek to make examples out of resistors in every way possible, to include fabricating, demoralizing stories about patriot leaders. They will pit American against American. They will attempt to incite race wars and use other divide and conquer tactics. They will most likely use a foreign force such as a Mexican military, Canadian military, or United Nations forces to stifle dissent. Biological and chemical warfare will be main tools of population control and attacking the resistance. Fabricated situations of national emergency or purposefully triggered national emergencies can be used to call in foreign troops. Gun and ammunition confiscation and even confiscation of food or other supplies will be key methods of attempts to weaken the patriot resistance. Enemy units can be sent in to kill Americans and then place the blame on American resistance fighters, thus embarrassing and discrediting the patriot movement. Every measure will be taken to demonize patriots and make them out to be terrorists. Friendly fire and civilian casualties cannot be avoided. War is not pretty. War is not clean. But every effort must be made to let Americans know that the patriot movement is interested in the least violent means of achieving its goals, and that all efforts will be made to minimize civilian casualties. However, when it comes to non-combatant enemy civilians, they will be targeted for summary destruction. Allow me to clarify what I mean by non-combatant enemy civilians. Consider this. You're hiding in the brush and a civilian points in your direction and says, "Hey, there's an American patriot hiding in the bushes over there." Or what if the person is working at a facility generating enemy propaganda that encourages people to report, capture, kill, or apprehend American patriots? That propaganda can help get you killed. What if the person sends a report to the enemy that says, "Hey, there's a patriot that lives right next to me. He has a collection of firearms, and I know for a fact that he just bought a box full of pocket-sized booklets about the Constitution of the United States of America." That could get you killed too. If such a person issued a report on you, what do you think their punishment should be? Technically, anyone who collaborates with the enemy is a traitor and should be tried for treason. Therefore, when I say that non-combatant enemy civilians will be targeted for summary destruction, I'm not advocating shooting these people necessarily. I'm advocating trying them for treason and more than likely executing them. Of course, in a situation where someone is going, "Hey, there's a patriot hiding in the shadows over there," different measures might be required. Enemy psychological operations, insofar as media and propaganda, will center around dividing Americans and presenting an overall air of hopelessness. Americanism will be redefined to stand for things which are in contravention to our Constitution and Bill of Rights. An invading army will be painted as helpful saviors rather than oppressors. Fellow Americans will be portrayed as terrorists, lunatics, psychopaths, and criminals. Religious propaganda will be used to stifle any kind of potentially effective, violent form of resistance. Films that seem to be anti-New World Order will actually support the idea of finding your solution in non-violent meditation, or seeing a world without borders, or without a grid. Such films as Zeitgeist and The Esoteric Agenda are prime examples of carefully crafted enemy propaganda that in the end promotes the New World Order agenda. Pacification of Americans will be key. Race warfare and false flag acts of terror will be primary methods of inciting racial hatred. The idea of the enemy possessing will be instrumental in convincing potential resistors from acting. Mentioning the very existence of such technologies, whether such technologies exist or not, will create feelings of terror and futility. Patriot Psychological Operations, or PSYOP, must focus on educating fellow Americans about American history and the value of our Constitution and Bill of Rights, rather than trying to sway fellow Americans to any particular political party, politician, or patriot leader. This will perpetuate unstoppable, leaderless resistance rather than placing the weight on a particular figurehead that can be assassinated or otherwise dealt with. Patriot PSYOP must focus on giving fellow Americans hope while simultaneously informing the enemy that Patriot forces are vast and growing. Enemy personnel and enemy organizations must be painted as evil and destructive to everything America stands for, and this is already happening quite effectively. All forms of media must be used, and a preparedness to use conventional methods such as leafletting, graffiti, or other physical media must take place to compensate for the possibility of internet communications being heavily policed or even completely shut down. The enemy must be made out to be cowards and villains. No imagery is too gory, no statement too harsh. Traitors must be dehumanized, and dehumanization must be maximized so that fellow Americans can easily support the elimination of such traitors. Attempts to split up and divide Americans, which is the body of the civilian army, must be fought head-on. Americans must be defined as a people of a wide variety. A pleasure and rejoicing must take place within the illustration of our great variety. Racist separatist organizations must be seen for what they are, a witting or unwitting tool of the enemy, a means for them to split our army. The real threat to our enemy is unification and brotherly love across all classes and races of people. This is why any leader who simultaneously speaks of resistance against our oppressors while also speaking of unification is assassinated or otherwise dealt with. Those who speak of division and separation will always get airtime in the media because they split our army and thus play into the hands of the enemy. We are Americans, a land of plenty, a land of variety, and this is where we make our last stand. If we cannot come together as brothers, then we will perish together as fools. Give me liberty or give me death.